Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our July the 9th, 2024 monthly meeting. Pledge allegiance, Mr. Short.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. All right. Consent agenda. Jim.
Good evening. On the consent agenda tonight, you have replacement of Unit 867, so you have utility service truck, and Unit number 801, which is a 3/4 ton pickup truck. You have 5.02, replacement of Unit 957, which is a 1-ton crew cab utility truck, and a purchase of trench roller for operations. 5.03, report and recommendation for acceptance of grant funds from Virginia Tourism Corporation. 5.04, treasurer's reports, and 5.05, minutes of previous meetings.
I move the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving right along. 7.01, public forum. The public forum is the opportunity for town citizens, visitors, and group to speak or bring to our attention any government-related issues. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Groups are requested to have spokesperson. If you are here for a public hearing, please hold your comments until later. Is there anyone who would like to speak this evening? Come on up, one at a time.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarita Fogg. I live at 506 South Blue Ridge Avenue. I've sent comments both on the Copper Ridge Planning Commission decision that you all have seen, I believe, but I also sent you a letter today about the maintenance code and the changes that are being proposed. And my concern is that I'm not sure that it's necessary. I've attended all of the committee meetings. Basically, the conversation started out with worrying about tenants and how tenants are being treated by their landlords and certain things, particularly mold infestations and the like. But to my way of looking at it, there is another act that is already in place that is applicable to all jurisdictions, and that is the Landlord and Tenant Act. And it has very specific requirements for landlords to keep properties safe and suitable for living, including mold remediation and many, many other things, from ventilation to air conditioning to all utilities. It just seems to me that we are expanding the town's property management code unnecessarily when there is, in fact, already a way for which tenants can go to their landlords and get things resolved. So that's what I would like to add for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Thornhill. I live at 1808 Stony Brook Lane. And I'm also here for the same discussion, or the lack of discussion, on the enforcing of additional components of the maintenance code. And we had a meeting with a bunch of landlords, the majority of the landlords in Culpeper that owned the property, with the planning department several months ago over at the Economic Development Building. And at that meeting, none of the representatives were in favor of enforcing this maintenance code. It had been turned down before. They did not support it because, as that lady just stated, the Virginia Landlord and Tenant Act already has the same type of, I guess you'd call it, complaint process for tenants. Because I don't understand, what is the reason that we're going to go into this additional enforcement entering people's properties? And it's going to have a cost associated with it. Is it something where you're going to fine the landlord and pay for these additional employees that you're hiring? Because it's not just an employee, it's benefits and probably a vehicle to go into these buildings. And will they be trained? Will they speak Spanish? If they do not, they should be. If they're not bilingual, I think that that's not a good representation of the county to send someone in there. I think that's all I have to say, but I am not in favor of adapting that town maintenance code any further than what we already have. And adding employees seems to be a waste of town dollars and taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, everybody. Pardon me, I'm a little tired. I just had a baby. My name is Brent Amos. I live at 801 Southeast Street. As you guys are well aware, the job of council is to set ordinances and regulations and enforce them in the best interest of the town of Culpeper. And in doing so, in regards to the Copper Ridge and Technology Campus electrical substation and utilities, the Virginia Code indicates that comprehensive plans need to indicate any new utilities. The current adopted comprehensive plan for Culpeper does not indicate new utilities. So the planning committee ruled that the development was not in conformance with the comprehensive plan because it was not indicated. Furthermore, the power substation is also not in conformance as any residential, which it was previously approved for, or any mixed-use development would not require a 10-acre substation. So I ask you to please agree with the planning committee. In agreeing with the planning committee, you're upholding the way that the Virginia statutes are set up for the planning committee to rule on these types of things. And it's in the best interest of the community. The developers who purchased the land bought that land knowing full and well that it was zoned for residential or a mixed-use development. And so I ask you to not put that developer ahead of the best interests of the remainder of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, council members and Mayor Reeves. My name is Jackie Kaiser. I live at 602 Southeast Street and Chandler Street. And I'm here concerning the Copper Ridge proposed data center and this latest planning commission meeting that we had. And as a member of the Southeast neighborhood, we feel that we should have been notified of the meetings of the Copper Ridge data center. We were not. We have strong objections to the data center being placed on Chandler Street and the impact that will have on our historic neighborhood. We understand that the noise of the cooling fans will be intolerable to nearby residences. No barrier can be placed to detonate that noise. It's a low frequency. It will go past the barriers. This data center will have a negative impact on the National Cemetery and our historic downtown as well, which relies heavily on tourism. The steering committee for the comprehensive plan wrote, which you as council adopted, that being 6 members which are still on council, and then added members that came at a later date, those members being Michael, Billy, Jamie, Frank, Pronis, and John Russell, all agreed and adopted this plan. We feel this document and recommendations containing within it represent a positive and desirable future for the town of Culpeper. The 2002 comp plan update, the intent and purpose of it was expanded community character component, making it the focus of the plan. And that's what we are. We would like to be the focus more so of this plan for this data center. And please take into consideration all of our concerns and the downside of what that would cause for all of us. Once it's in, there's no going back. You can't take it down. It's there. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Sarah Parmalee, representing the Piedmont Environmental Council. In June, I had the privilege of attending a ribbon cutting for the new Culpeper Battlefield State Park, as did many of you. Before the ribbon was cut and the cannon fired, Paige Reed, the town of Culpeper's Tourism and Economic Development Director, spoke about the importance of protecting this land and the many benefits the park would bring to Culpeper, including spreading tourism dollars throughout the many small businesses in the county and the town. However, every week I meet someone new who lives in Culpeper who is appalled that a place like the Culpeper National Cemetery, a branch of Arlington National Cemetery, is being industrialized with data centers and substations. It makes me concerned for the future of those businesses that rely heavily on tourism traffic and our small town charm. People will not come to Culpeper to look at an Amazon data center. The Copper Ridge Data Center campus was not the only option for this property, but it was the one the town council chose to approve, and that cannot be undone. However, we feel it would be unseemly for the town council to overrule the planning commission, disregard the comprehensive plan, and ignore all the concerns that have been raised by the community in favor of a single industrial development. By upholding the decision of the Planning Commission and amending the comprehensive plan with language like I have provided to all of you, the Town Council can reduce its liability with regard to this issue and respect the public planning process, which is hugely important. Curtailing the ability of the public to voice their concerns about decisions that will affect their homes, their health, and their quality of life risks the community losing faith in their local government and elected officials. Just look at Warrenton. Moreover, amending the comprehensive plan would only mean a slight delay for Copper Ridge, which has not even filed a site plan. Unlike a comprehensive plan update, which can take a long time, an amendment is a matter of a few public hearings, a process that the town successfully completed between January and February of 2023, when they amended the comprehensive plan to address new businesses and residents gained through a boundary line adjustment with the county. This is a simple solution to multiple problems, and it is concerning that it is not the obvious choice for the town council. For these reasons, we ask that the town council uphold the decision of the Planning Commission and pursue amending the comprehensive plan rather than resort to unilateral action to benefit wealthy corporations over town residents who live and vote here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor Reeves and council members. My name is Charlotte Cole. I live on Blue Ridge Avenue in town. I'd like to speak about the Planning Commission's decision of nonconformity to the town's comprehensive plan by the Copper Ridge substation developer. As many of my fellow concerned citizens and colleagues have pointed out, and to which I wholeheartedly agree, substation envisioned to support the 8 Copper Ridge data centers does not conform with the town's comprehensive plan. We made a compelling argument to the Planning Commission, to which they voted to agree. These are fellow citizens, such as yourselves, whom you have empowered to collect and analyze facts, including commentary from citizens of a matter, and render their educated, informed, and independent opinion back to you. After much consideration and certainly lengthy discussion, the Planning Commission voted that the substation does not conform to the comprehensive plan. The developer now has appealed that decision, placing you in the crosshairs of an elevated argument such as the one raging north of us in Warrenton, as well as in numerous places all across Virginia and the nation for that matter. As I was drafting the letter that I sent to you, I was struck by the town's vision statement. Promote development and investment to create long-term sustainability through a coordinated effort which ensures there is a balance between aesthetics, economics, public health and safety, and transportation and public services that can be maintained over the long term, resulting in a community that is equal to or better than the present day. Copper Ridge and all its parts, the substation, transmission lines, data centers, simply does not create long-term sustainability. and certainly does not ensure a balance between aesthetics, economics, and public health and safety. This is exceedingly well documented, and in the letter that I sent you, I have cited a number of articles and studies that should prove that point. I know that the developers are offering our jurisdiction a whole lot of money, just as they are doing elsewhere, to allow these facilities to be built within a jurisdiction's boundaries. But you have to ask yourself if this particular project supports the town's vision, let alone its distinguished history as having and continuing to aim for a higher quality of life than the present. I respectfully but vigorously urge you to support your Planning Commission colleagues by upholding their decision and then denying the developer's appeal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening. My name is Rich Kaiser. I live on Southeast Street in the town of Culpeper. I would understand that as the Copper Ridge Data Center stands, that it doesn't fall within the parameters of our comprehensive plan. So I would think it might behoove you folks to take a moment to find out why citizens don't care for data centers in their backyard. I know that to the town, data centers are the goose that lays the golden egg, but not really to the citizens. Data centers don't make great neighbors. I've heard over and over that there's a tremendous amount of noise. I'm not an expert on noise, but I understand that people and communities next to data centers get no relief 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year from the noise that data centers create. I don't feel that the town has adequately looked into this. And I feel that now that you have a chance to, it would be a great thing if you did it. The other thing also is the infrastructure for the power that's going to be going to the data center, the increased power usage, and the infrastructure is not paid for by the people who are getting wealthy on the data centers. Ultimately, it falls on the consumers in the county. That's you and I who pay for our electric. Our electric bills are going to go up because of this infrastructure that has to be put in and the increased power that comes Culpeper. Also, I know that data centers use a tremendous amount of water, and I think all of you are aware of what Lake Culpeper looked like last year. And the one in town is going to use probably town water. Just as an aside, I found it humorous when I read in the paper about the data center recently approved by the county, which is just a stone's throw from the Copper Ridge Data Center. And they said that they're going to give the people that are going to make themselves extremely wealthy a 40% tax break if they hire 10 people to run the data center. Now, doesn't it seem like maybe they should give the 10 people that are running the data center a 40% tax break rather than the people who are wealthy already? And just also as an aside to that, I'm a veteran. And for a veteran to get a 5% tax break in Culpeper County, he must be 100% disabled. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Honorable Council. My name is Steve Walker. I live at 701 Southeast Street. I was reading an article in the paper the other day that, which, by the way, I guess have to get the newspaper in order to see what's going on because nobody notified anybody on East Street. In fact, I also serve on the Human Services Board, and there's the early Head Start school right in the shadow of the substation that was approved by the Planning Commission. And they weren't notified at all. There was no notification on that. No notification, and unless the railroad track is considered the adjoining property owner, which I'm not sure, but that seems not consistent with my knowledge of notification of zoning changes. But I was reading the paper, and Supervisor Lee said he would remain opposed to any more data centers until concerns about the first 5 approved can be fully understood. The Planning Commission is giving you an opportunity to step back on one of the data centers and give it some time, do a little bit more study, see how it's going to impact by the first data center that you've already approved and that the Planning Commission approved of the substation. But with the action of the Planning Commission, it gives Town Council an opportunity to step back and look at it more thoroughly. And then some of the Board of Supervisors, it was all about the money, the money that's going to come from the data centers. Well, hopefully if you make that decision, that you're going to provide us, the taxpayers, with a town tax reduction if it's all about the money, because we should share in that same kind of money scheme. Also, maybe the utilities control the cost of utilities for electric, water, and sewer. Maybe you can give a reduction in that as well. That would be appreciated if you decide to go ahead and approve this. Fortunately, I was talking with Jim at one of the Planning Commission meetings, and he says because of the water and sewer agreement that we did many years ago, that wells cannot be drilled in the area of this data center because it's in the water and sewer district. So hopefully that's a good thing in terms of the water. And one last thing, Kathy and I drove up to Manassas. I don't know if any of you have gone up and looked at any of these buildings, but they're huge. I was actually very favorable with Equinix if that's the kind of buildings that we were going to have, or Swift, but that's not it. These are 70-foot tall buildings, and on the Copper Ridge, it's going to be the tallest buildings in the town of Culpeper are going to be on the highest point in the town of Culpeper, and everybody's going to see them. And if you do decide to go ahead and approve this and move forward with this, please look into the sound and particularly the lighting, because when we saw these buildings, we could see them from miles away. They're all lit up. So there are things that maybe you can do to provide better lighting, less harmful to the residents and to the environment of the entire town. And as several people have mentioned, the sound is very interesting. It's a low rumble sound that you can hear from miles away from these buildings. And the data centers, again, they're a good economic development, but please take a lot to consideration for the town citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. All right, I'm closing the public forum at this time. Public hearing on Culpeper Vision Zone Action Plan. Lewis.
Good evening. I'm Louis Pancotti, Town Planner, and I will be presenting the Vision Zero Action Plan. So SS4A, or Safe Streets and Road for All, is a federal grant program that offers planning grants and implementation grants for a wide variety of transportation projects. In order to be able to apply for implementation grants, a plan is needed that outlines the policy changes and projects that can reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries. The town received funds from the SS4A grant program to develop what is called a Vision Zero action plan. Vision Zero is an innovative approach for analyzing and preventing traffic-related fatalities and severe injuries with the goal of eliminating all traffic-related fatalities and deaths within a defined period of time. It also promotes using the safe systems approach to understanding traffic injuries and how we can make an impact as policymakers. Our plan includes an introduction that summarizes the vision and the approach of the plan, a community profile that looks at the demographic and other trends to ensure equity in the transportation planning and project selection process, a data analysis that included a look at VDOT crash data, and the survey that was distributed to the community, as well as a downtown area pedestrian study that was conducted by Hurt and Profit and EPR. The plan also includes an evaluation of existing transportation policies, and lastly, our goals for reaching the plan's vision and a list of recommended projects. So the vision of the plan will be to achieve zero roadway deaths within the town of Culpeper by the year 2034. A resolution with this plan will be passed committing the town to this goal. After taking the data analysis and community profile into account, we were able to establish 3 goals along with strategies that will help us achieve those goals. Goal number 1 is to institutionalize a focus on safety. The strategies for this goal were to create policies and plans with a focus on safety to include traffic calming, complete streets, and other safe system approach principles. Prioritize projects within the high injury network, which you can see on the map on this slide. The high injury network represents only 13.5% of the public roadway, but of all crashes, 64.34 occurred in the high injury network, and this also includes 82.76 of severe and fatal crashes. And the third strategy is to conduct studies to inform and improve the data analysis. Goal number 2 is to design streets to be safe for all users, and the strategies that correspond with that goal are to increase visibility on the streets by effectively illuminating the roadway and improving signage and street markings, improve pedestrian and cyclist safety by implementing complete streets principles, connecting the sidewalk and pedestrian network, and by improving accessibility, improve driver safety and traffic flow throughout town by implementing complete street principles, using the safe system approach when analyzing and developing projects, and by installing traffic calming measures, and to ensure representation and public involvement in the planning process. Goal number 3 is to create a culture of safety. And the strategies for that goal are to reduce dangerous behavior through education and enforcement, and to regularly monitor and reevaluate the action plan. Recommended projects were grouped into operational projects, infrastructure projects, and behavioral projects. Operational projects include things such as a street lighting study and developing a process where citizens can request studies and improvements in their own neighborhoods. Infrastructure properties or projects include curb extensions, ADA curb ramp upgrades, pedestrian signal upgrades, and improved signal timing. Behavioral projects include things like multi-language publications, seatbelt enforcement signage, and DUI checkpoints. These were just a few examples, but I would be happy to discuss any of the other projects that were in the plan if you would like. The plan will be publicly available on the town's website. Each year we will track the progress of the initiated projects. This can be part of the annual Culpeper 2030 plan. It will be reviewed and updated every 5 years. New crash data within that time period will help us reveal the successes and weaknesses of the proposed strategies and projects. And with this plan, we hope to be able to apply for implementation grants for any projects or projects that are a part of this plan. And I'd be happy to any questions you have at this time for me.
Any questions for Lewis?
Just a quick question, Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead, Joe.
So, thank you for the plan, by the way. That is very detailed.
Oh, thank you.
There's some great information in there about our, not just our roadways, but pedestrian safety and public transportation. So I reached out to the strategic coordination team for this project. I was wondering are there other localities the size of Culpeper that we could look at to see how they implemented it? And they sent me a list, but it was primarily larger urban areas like Richmond and City of Alexandria and places like that. But do we have other small localities like Culpeper that we could just take a look at to see what does this look like if we actually incorporate it?
Yes, so this is a relatively new program. So in Virginia, a lot of what you're going to see are the bigger urban areas. North Carolina has a very large network of localities that have adopted Vision Zero plans. So as part of our research, we looked at a lot of those as well. But as you said, in Virginia, right now it has been a lot of more of the bigger localities. But in doing this, I have reached out to other smaller localities, and there are smaller localities that are looking in to do the planning grant in the future.
Okay. So again, we're on the forefront.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Thank you, Lewis. At this time, I'm opening the public hearing. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Does anyone like to speak on this tonight? Come on.
Sarah Parmalee, representing the Piedmont Environmental Council. We are supportive of this plan, and we are excited to see what opportunities it creates for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. All right. Close public hearing at this time. All right. Resolution adopting the Vision Zero Action Plan. Lewis.
So the Planning Commission recommended approval for the adoption of the plan and the passing of the resolution.
I move the R&R.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Aye.
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 Aye. Public hearing on water tank lease at 608 Overlook Street. Howard.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
The hearing for 9.01B is the first of two property lease agreements for hearing tonight. Both of these agreements were advertised in accordance with state code on July 2nd, 2024. This agreement for the water tank, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, currently has an agreement since 2019 for antennas and related equipment at the tower site and is seeking an amendment to extend the agreement for another 5-year period. The annual rent will increase from $33,000 to $36,000 per year, an 8.7% increase, and there will be an automatic annual escalation of rent throughout the 5-year term of 2% per year. After the hearing, there will be no action required by council, as town manager has the authority to execute this agreement under Town Code Section 2-122.
Any questions I have? No? At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to speak on this item? No one? Close public hearing at this time. All right. Public hearing on parking lot lease at 109 South Commerce Street, Howard.
This property lease agreement, agenda item 9.01C, relates to a small parking lot located near the depot, on what's considered the Waters Place property. And this agreement, or an original ground lease agreement, was originally executed with the developer then back in December of 2007, executed by council with the developer for use of a small town-owned parcel as a parking lot adjacent to the building at 109 South Commerce Street. This lot currently has 9 parking spaces, of which one, I believe two are reserved for the use of town staff at the depot, although I only saw signage on the site right now for 1 space. And there are at least 2 handicap spaces in that lot. And it is primarily for the use of the residents of that 109 South Commerce Street building. The original agreement originally was for 40, with an initial term of 5 years, with renewals allowed every 5 years for a term up to 40 years. Over the time after that agreement was executed, administratively, that agreement had fallen into not being extended, and it was renewed back in 2019 with a 5-year agreement. The owner of the property is now seeking a new 5-year agreement, which would extend the agreement as per the original terms of council's intent back in 2007. The annual rent for the 5-year period would start at $50 per year and would have annual escalations of 3% per year, which again is similar to the terms originally established in 2007. As per the last agreement, no action would be required by council after the hearing, as the town manager has the authority to execute this agreement under Town Code Section 2-122.
Any questions?
I'm sorry, Mr.
All right,
One
go ahead,
question.
Joe.
So this, just to be clear, this is the parking lot in front of the visitor center and the train depot. Is that the lot that we're talking about off Commerce Street?
It's the small parking lot that is between the depot building and the brewery building. It's adjacent to the train tracks.
Okay. It's not the, okay, it does not include the East Culpeper Street.
It is not currently town parking,
Property.
public parking.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Hal. Open the floor this time for public hearing. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comment to 3 minutes. Would anyone like to speak on this item? No one? Close the public hearing at this time. All right. 9.028, submission of quarterly reports. Council received reports. Is there any questions or comments on that from the council? None? All right, let's move right along. 9.03, orders amending Chapter 4, Virginia Property Maintenance Code of the Town of Culpeper, second reading. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As noted, this is a second reading of council considering adoption of a portion of the Virginia Property Maintenance Code. This matter has been considered by council's committees since August of last year. We've had numerous meetings and essentially have whittled down the code that's up for consideration from the entirety of it down to now with a focus on dealing with infestations, dealing with mold, along with fire safety in the absence of a local fire marshal. So with that being the case, just to quickly provide the overview of which sections are up for consideration of adoption, we currently have adopted sections 104, 105, 106, which relate to enforcement generally, violations, and unsafe structures. Proposed to be added are the entire sections in Chapter 2 for definitions, the general section and the general definitions. Chapter 3, the general requirements related to pest infestation and extermination. And then in Chapter 7, the fire safety requirements, the general, the means of egress, the fire resistance ratings, fire protection systems, and carbon monoxide alarms and detection. Then there are partial sections related primarily to the mold infestation, the mold and the infestation concerns. These sections are in the exterior property areas portion that related to grading and drainage, to rodent harborage, related to the exterior structure, the foundation wall section, exterior wall section, roofs and drainage, window, skylight, and door frames, basement hatchways, guards for basement windows. And, that focused on the interior structure, the general section, along with the carbon monoxide alarms, and finally the section on ventilation related to natural or mechanical ventilation. Again, we've taken measures here because there were concerns expressed about the subjectivity of certain portions of the code to remove those to the extent possible. It's focused on objective standards here and looking to address those items that council had identified in the committee as wishing to address. Again, this is a second reading. Coming out of the Personnel and Ordinance Committee, there was a recommendation for approval of these sections. I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
John?
So this has been on the table for, I don't know, roughly 5 years or more, as far as just being discussed, bantered around the department and the committee level. If this passes tonight, do you view this as a stepping stone towards another part 2 or part 3 of a larger maintenance code, or do you see this as going to be sufficient to address the issues that the town needs to address?
Ultimately, this is council's decision. Council was the one who initiated the conversation and bringing this back for consideration to address concerns that council members had heard from residents of certain structures here. Staff is not advocating one way or the other in terms of adoption. So if there is a desire from the community and from council representing the community to adopt a further measure, we will certainly explore that, but staff will not be initiating anything outside of this.
Thank you.
Jamie?
So you mentioned the various meetings that went into this, how everything was whittled down, and then we came out with just the focus on mold, pest infestation, and fire safety. Can you talk a little bit about how we got to those 3 things, meaning the complaints that were reported to us by town staff about issues with mold and with pests, and then the reasoning behind the fire safety and having the lack of the fire marshal, and what that all means, please?
Certainly. So as was noted, we don't track the complaints that we get where we're unable to address them. The primary ones anecdotally that we're able to report that we do get relate to pest infestations and to mold within residences. So upon hearing that was council's desire to look to provide some accommodations in there. You did hear reference to the Virginia Landlord Tenants Act. We do provide that information to those who are complaining to make them aware of their rights. That does not provide the locality with any ability to aid in the remediation of any of these. That's an independent matter outside of the locality. But we do share that with folks who complain about their situations. On the fire safety aspect of it, again, because we don't have a local fire marshal here in town, the enforcement of the state fire code falls largely on the building department in their role or on the state fire marshal to come out. We don't have them here on a frequent basis. This would provide the town with the ability to help enforce fire safety within town on the structures here.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if this code is enforced, that helps the town to have leverage to improve fire safety, because we don't have the fire marshal to do that arm. And then it also provides tenants with some more way to improve safety in their residents in regards to pests and infestation. You said that you give them information about other codes, tenant landlord codes that they can then act on. But in situations where individuals may not feel empowered to do so out of fear of losing their home or any other kind of repercussion, this would give some kind of support to town renters. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. This would certainly allow us to address more expediently fire safety concerns by having a local ability to enforce this, as opposed to relying on having to bring a fire marshal out from Richmond to enforce those matters. Related to the mold and the pest infestations, it would provide the town with a role to help to remediate those situations where tenants were finding difficulties, because there would be those objective standards related to the Virginia Property Maintenance Code that the town would be ensuring the property owners were upholding.
So everything here is public safety, all the aesthetic and subjective stuff was taken out.
Correct. We worked with the council committees to remove the subjective components.
John?
Yeah. So last year, the council put regulations on owning chickens, right? So that placed that responsibility on this particular department. So if we pass this is going to cost us $93,000 basically to implement, because we have to hire someone. Will that person be dedicated just to this? Or will they also be helping with chicken enforcement or any other enforcement needs that are in the community?
This, if passed, this would see essentially a redistribution of the responsibilities between our current zoning inspector and this position to cover all of those related to code enforcement within the town, both our current zoning enforcement, our erosion and sediment control inspections, along with this. Again, there's a number of different credentials involved with the different code sections, and so we would seek to best allocate our resources in that regard between the two positions if this were to be adopted.
Anyone else? I got a question. On the complaints, what we usually average a month?
As I said, it's difficult to say because we don't track it. We certainly are getting some, and the difficulty as well is once we've gotten a complaint that we've been informed the tenant or the resident that we're not able to address it, we don't hear necessarily a repeat complaint from it. So it's difficult to say what that number is in all honesty.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. So I think, just on Councilman Russell's point, I think we're estimating 100,000 with salary and benefits for the full-time employee, plus an additional 20,000 to be set aside for potential legal fees for enforcement. Is that
Correct.
still accurate?
And that'd be the subsequent item on council's agenda,
Right.
should you choose to pass this.
And so I think that we, or not we, but council has talked about this, I think, for several years now. And it just seems to be coming back up, but different sections. And I guess I'm a little concerned that, having read through the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, having talked to folks at the Fair Housing Office, it just seems like we're duplicating legislation that's already there and available. And I guess I'm just concerned with increasing that, with duplicating that type of legislation. I understand the point about having someone here local in Culpeper to handle complaints as opposed to having to go to Richmond or contact somebody in Alexandria, but I'm just concerned about that.
So,
John?
So we were talking about protecting tenant rights. So what happens when a tenant complains about a particular issue in a house and then the landlord basically pulls their lease and kicks them out? Do we have any protections for them at that point when that happens?
Not at the local level, as I understand that is subject to the Landlord-Tenant Act in terms of repercussions for complaints. But again, that would not be something that the locality would enforce.
I see.
Anyone else? Thank you, Andrew. Motion to approve the recommendation?
I move the R&R.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk? No?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
No.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
All right, let's see. 9.03A2, Establishment of Code Compliance Officer Position. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With council's action on the previous action, we do not recommend adopting this position.
Need a roll call? You want to need a motion? Motion?
And Mr. Mayor, I move that we strike that item from the agenda and strike that recommendation.
Get a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Russell?
Aye.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Aye.
Councilmember Short?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy? Aye. Councilmember Olinger?
Aye.
9.03A3, ordinance amending Chapter 24 wastewater contribution permits of the town of Culpeper. First reading, act.
Town Code Section 24-241 establishes requirements for wastewater contribution permits, which include significant industrial user permits, as well as fats, oil, and grease discharge permits, and includes a specific reference in the code to the dollar amount of the permit application fee for significant industrial users. A reference in town code to a specific dollar amount is generally not what would be done, but this was established many years ago. On recommendation of staff, council amended the fee from $1,000 to $2,000 at the time of the adoption of the fiscal year 2023 budget in May of 2022. And council has since ratified that amount in the adoption of the fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25 budgets. However, it was inadvertently overlooked that the town code included the stated amount in the code section and was not amended at that time. The proposed ordinance change seeks to update the town code to remove the specific fee amount and reference the fee amount as established in the fine and fee schedule by town council, which is then reviewed annually as part of the budget adoption cycle. There's also minor administrative edits in the code section referencing testing standards established by the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. The effective date of this change is proposed to be July 1st, 2024, which corresponds with the effective date of the most recent fine and fee schedule changes approved by council just in May of 2024. There are currently 5 significant industrial user permits that are billed on a 5-year permit period, and the most recent permit period started July 1st, 2024. The recommendation is that council adopts ordinance 2024007, amending Chapter 24, Utilities, Article 4, Sewers and Sewage Disposal, Section 24-241 of the Town Code, and authorizes the mayor and the clerk to execute the document. It is further recommended that council order that the second reading be waived and pass this ordinance on first reading without the necessity of waiting until the next regular meeting of the town council for action pursuant to council's power to otherwise order under Town Code Section 2-32.
I move the R&R.
Second it.
Any discussion?
Question.
Discussion?
You said there's currently 5 users that would qualify under this that we have on the system?
Correct.
Yeah, can you give me an example of who that might be?
Sure. Those 5 users are Continental, Cintas, the Town Water Treatment Plant, Rochester Cable, and Mount Pony Packard Theater.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Thank you, Harry. Thank you. Motion to approve this? Huh? Any discussions? Roll call, roll call. Roll call, Madam Clerk, that's where I'm at.
No.
Aye.
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 All right. 9.03B1, Comprehensive Plan Review for Culpeper Technology Campus Electric Substation. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is coming to you from the Planning Commission. This is a requirement for public corporation facilities that they be found to conform with the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission separated the two different substation facilities associated with two data center projects located within the town. The first one is the Culpeper Technology Campus, which they found to conform with the comprehensive plan as the substation facility on that particular site was depicted on the rezoning materials that were considered during the rezoning process. Council has two options on this. You may uphold the Planning Commission's finding of conformity with the comprehensive plan, which would allow them to move forward with their site planning process, or you could overturn the Planning Commission's finding and find that this is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, which would force them to find an alternate location for the substation facility. I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Mr. Rodriguez?
All right, Andrew, let's go back in time a little bit. Could you explain how this came about in the first place? I mean, was it an omission from the original rezonings, or was there a challenge? I mean, how did it come up?
This was largely an omission on my part. When we had the rezoning applications at the staff level, we were far more focused on the data center buildings themselves and not the substation facilities that went along to accommodate it. In an ideal world, we would have done this comprehensive plan conformity review in conjunction with the rezoning applications themselves. Once we got to the stage of receiving the site plan for the Culpeper Technology Campus and then seeing the substations, I realized the omission that we had made, and so wanted to bring this back for consideration before the Planning Commission and ultimately Town Council for this conformity to ensure that we were compliant with state code and the requirements that these facilities be found to conform to the comprehensive plan. So with that in mind, staff initiated this. We performed the analysis. We performed a single analysis for the two facilities as their location on the comprehensive plan had the same guidance and the same guiding language reflective of the location that was proposed for these facilities, and brought that forward to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission elected to separate the two applications, or the two particular facilities, and ultimately had different findings on them as far as their conformity.
One more thing. Okay, in 15.2.22.32, I don't see any language in there that requires the local governing body to uphold the decision. It only addresses overruling it. It says the local governing body may overrule. So in terms of options here on the recommendation, uphold or overrule, I see it as overrule or do nothing. I mean, if they just submit, the Plan Commission submits their findings and we accept them and say thank you. So I don't even see why we have to, and this is the Culpeper Technology Campus one. I don't think we have to do anything, go on to the next one.
Sorry, just to clarify, so under that rationale, that's if we're going to approve it. But if we don't agree with the substation, then we should have a vote on it.
You're right, if you want to overrule it, except there isn't an issue with this one, apparently nobody's appealing it, nobody's making an issue of it, haven't got 30 emails on this one as I got from the other one, so.
Sure, just to make sure that I'm understanding that this substation is needed for a data center.
Correct.
No substation, no data center.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
And just for clarification, this one that's in front of us now, the Planning Commission approved.
The Planning Commission found this facility to be in conformance with the town's comprehensive plan.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just on a quick note there, I think Councilman Ramikis is right. We shouldn't have to do this, but it's probably a good idea because of the next item on our agenda to make sure there's a distinction there. I would offer that.
Mm-hmm. All right, anyone else? Thank you. Motion to approve?
I move the support of the planning commission. Move the R&R
To uphold?
to uphold.
Okay. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
All right. 9.04A, appeal of Copper Ridge Electric Substation. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a note here, just for the audience. I believe that the council is choosing to amend the agenda and move the appeal ahead of the finding relative to the Planning Commission action. In this instance, the property owner of Copper Ridge has appealed the Planning Commission's finding that the electric substation on their property is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. With that being the case, and having given the background in the prior case that carries over to this one, I will cede the floor to the applicant in this instance to present their case for the appeal.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor, members of Town Council. My name is Brian Prater with Walsh, Colucci, Lubelai, and Walsh, here tonight on behalf of the property owner and the developer of the Copper Ridge, known as the Copper Ridge Data Center Campus. And we are here tonight, as Andrew just indicated, on the appeal of the Planning Commission's decision from June. And we want to thank you for your time tonight and consideration, and respectfully request that you overrule the Planning Commission's decision for the reasons set forth in the appeal, which you've received a copy of, which I will briefly summarize for you tonight. You've had a lot on your agenda so far. As far as background, this property was approved in September of 2023 for a rezoning to M2 to allow for data center uses. In connection with that approval, proffers were approved that reference that the property needs to be developed in conformance with the concept development plan. That concept development plan depicts things such as buffers, travelways, data center buildings, as well as substations. As you know, a substation is a public facility that, when it's not identified within the comprehensive plan, must be submitted to the Planning Commission for their consideration and review as to the general location or approximate location, character, and extent thereof to be in substantial accordance with the comprehensive plan. On June 18th, as you all are aware, there were one application that was split into two for the Planning Commission's review on substations, identical, adjacent to each other, and there was two different findings, as you are all aware. They supported the CTC campus substation, reasons being the substation was depicted on the rezoning materials and was seen as necessary to support data center use being considered. The Copper Ridge application had the same materials associated with the rezoning, had the same depiction of details on on their concept development plan, and had those same elements. And despite having all of those identical elements, the Planning Commission ended up making a different decision that it was not substantially in accord with the comprehensive plan for several reasons, which are outside, in a lot of respects, the limited scope that the 2232 section gives the Planning Commission when considering a public facility and a 2232 review. The first being the highest and best use of the property, and that even references for the considerations discussed in the rezoning. I think it's important to understand, as you all are aware, this is not a revisit of the rezoning approval. The Town Council had deemed an appropriate use of the property and deemed as one of the considerations that you council have as a rezoning is what is the highest and best or an appropriate use of the land. And through your action in September of last year, you indicated that a data center, along with the necessary and critical infrastructure to support that, is a appropriate use of the land. In a 2232 review, that is not something that is presented to the commission for their consideration on the highest and best use. It is limited to the general location, general and approximate location, character, and extent, and whether or not that's in substantial accordance with the comprehensive plan. It also, the highest and best use appears to further revisit and question whether or not town council was appropriate in determining that approved data center. And that's not something that was before the planning commission that evening. The employment center, another reason, the employment center land use is not compatible with a 10-acre substation. And I think as the conformity report indicates, M2 is a compatible zoning district. Substations were approved through were considered in connection with that rezoning, and it's a necessary and critical component. And there's also other elements of the comprehensive plan, like the growth area, where the long-term vision was for industrial and business uses to be economic drivers within the town. Additionally, there was reference to substations could have an adverse impact on the tourism. It's very hard to distinguish on how the adjacent substations would be materially different from the Copper Ridge substations with respect on impact of tourism, highest and best use of the land, or the consistency with the employment center for that matter. And then again, the ideal location of the substation being elsewhere, that is not a consideration for the Planning Commission at that time. It's whether or not it is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And given the identical nature of these two considerations of a 2232 before the Planning Commission and now before you as Town Council, we believe that they should be found the same and should be found in substantial conformance, and we would respectfully request that you overrule the Planning Commission's decision on that evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Go ahead, Jamie.
So just to clarify, 2 identical plans were presented. One was approved, one was not.
2 extremely similar plans, yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you. All right, go back to the other one now. 9.03 B2 Comprehensive Plan Review of Copper Ridge Electric Station. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've heard the appeal on this. Essentially, council has 2 options at this stage. You may uphold the Planning Commission's finding that the electric substation facility at the Copper Ridge was not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, which would require them to relocate that facility to a location that was found to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan, which would then be in conflict with the approved and proffered conceptual development plan that went through the rezoning process. Alternately, the council may overrule the Planning Commission's finding of this not being in conformance and instead deem the electrical substation facility to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan, which would allow the site plan and development of this project to move forward in conformance with the proffered conceptual development plan. Be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
James?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Prior to the rezoning to allow for the data center, it was by right zoning for residential, correct?
Correct. There had been a rezoning in the mid-2000s for an age-restricted residential community on this site that had a proffered conceptual development plan and layout associated with it.
Which, if we had not rezoned, that community could have been built without coming to council.
Correct.
So the concerns about a data center, noise, traffic, the perception is that would be more with a data center than it would be with a neighborhood?
When we heard public comment during the rezoning period, there was significant concern that the noise from a data center and more specifically the cooling facilities associated with the data center would exceed that from a residential community.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Lucas?
Yeah. Okay. I guess in the perfect world that we were talking about before, if you if it had not been an omission, what would it take to make a substation substantially in accord with the comp plan? What would we have? Is it a map? Is it language?
Ultimately, that's for the Planning Commission to determine. The Virginia Code tasks them with the job of determining conformity with the comprehensive plan. Some localities do have a map, some localities do have language. Ms. Parmalee has provided an example from Culpeper County where they do have the combination of map and a language. There's no set or prescribed way per Virginia Code to outline or delineate this. And again, facilities of this nature tend to be unique in their character, which makes it difficult to generalize or provide that in advance of specific projects.
Okay, well, in the beginning of 2232, it reads, unless a feature is already shown on the adopted master plan, then that leads into the discussion of having to prove that it's substantially in accord with that. So if that substation were on a map,
It would essentially negate the need for an independent finding.
all right, and of course, we can't put it on the map because nobody knows where it's going to be.
Correct, in advance of an actual project.
Right. And that's really what we're talking about here is just a substation, not any of the other issues that we've been hearing about. It's just the location of it, the character of it, and the extent of it.
That's the
That's
only
it.
feature required by Virginia State Code to be found to
All
conform.
right, so the findings, the substance of the finding has to address those three things.
Correct.
Right. So did the planning commission in this case address those three things?
I'm afraid that's the question before council right now.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
John?
I'm also a little confused with the Planning Commission's findings with two very similar designs and drawings and placements of a substation for one that was approved, but for one right next to it that was not approved. And would love to get more clarification on that. I'm also concerned that if for Copper Ridge, the substation is required to be moved, what the ingress of transmission lines will look like then. Currently, one of the things that we appreciated about the two designs was that the substations were placed in close proximity together, allowing for a single path for transmission. If for some reason we have to break the substations apart, now we're looking at potentially, well, maybe that's the question I need to ask our planning department. How different could that design look like from a transmission perspective?
It's certainly a valid point. Ultimately, the State Corporation Commission is the one who determines the alignment of the power lines of the magnitude that are anticipated to serve these substations. In working with the developers of the two projects, the substations have been proposed to be located in such a way that would facilitate transmission lines to serve them, essentially coming down the middle between the two properties to minimize their visibility from either the entry corridors into the town in terms of Route 3 Germanna Highway coming into town, or Chandler Drive where we do have existing power lines, but the need to possibly upgrade those to a greater extent, which would then further diminish potentially the buffering and screening of the Copper Ridge project from adjoining residential subdivisions. So while the State Corporation Commission is ultimately one that has the ability to dictate this, we've been working to make the most obvious and simplest solution this central line that minimizes the adverse impacts of the lines themselves. Now, the lines themselves, as stated, are not subject to this review at this time because they are anticipated to be in excess of that which would be subject to that 2232 review. It's really the substation facilities themselves that are the focus of consideration here.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to say that it's hard to understand how, when we're talking about the substation sections that were left off the comprehensive plan, how one is approved and the other is not. I'm sorry.
Mike.
A button. I'm just trying to understand how, when we're talking about just substations, in this case, it was brought before the Planning Commission, how we're talking about substations, how one is approved and one is not. We're not talking about anything else but the substations. So that's my quandary.
All right, anyone else?
I'd just like to point out, there's a provision also in 2232 that council has 60 days to make a decision. We don't have to decide tonight. I mean, we still have it's possible to take it back to committee or to committee and, dig a little bit deeper in this.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
I move that we overrule the Planning Commission's findings and
I second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
What was the motion? Aye.
No.
aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
No.
Aye. All right. 9.04B, Appeal of Zoning Administrator Interpretation. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you tonight is an appeal of the Planning Commission's action upholding the zoning administrator's interpretation of the subdivision ordinance. Mr. Beard had requested to perform a family subdivision within the town of Culpeper per state code, utilizing their guidance as far as access. The proposed construction of this lot would not have public road frontage. The town code, so essentially the zoning administrator determined that this family subdivision is permitted within the town, but it must conform with the town's zoning ordinance and facility standards manual. This finding was found from Town Code Section 22-41, which specifically states that family subdivision shall comply with Chapter 27 of the Town Code, which is the town zoning ordinance, the facility standards manual, and other laws and regulations of the town. Mr. Beard's contestation is that state code allows for other considerations to be taken place with family subdivisions. The zoning administrator's interpretation in this instance is that the town code is very clear that they need to apply the standards for all subdivisions to family subdivisions as well. Mr. Beard is here to present his case. We did want to note as well that should council uphold the Planning Commission's decision to uphold the zoning administrator's decision, we would anticipate having a conversation at the committee level with council in August to potentially put provisions in place that would allow greater flexibility for family subdivisions within the town. However, at this time, you're being asked to weigh in on the code as it exists currently and the interpretation of that code. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and then Mr. Beard is here to present his case.
Questions?
Go ahead, John.
If we granted the appeal in the face of our own code, what does that do?
It makes it very difficult to enforce because there's not clear guidance then on how exactly what standards we would hold the family subdivision to.
But then we could come back in August and correct this. This is a glaring issue with our code that doesn't allow families to subdivide a piece of property for their own. That's as American as you can get.
Well, again,
we're saying we can't do that.
It is permitted. They just have to abide by the same standards as any other subdivision.
Right, but it's not like they're putting a Lakeview
Correct.
back
There's
there.
no special,
I mean,
essentially special accommodations being provided for a family subdivision in town.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I also, Mr. Mayor, I also think that property rights are just ingrained from a constitutional perspective, and I really appreciate that from a Virginia State Code, it supports that, and I was very concerned to hear that, from a locality ordinance that we don't, but I'm very glad to hear that we have a plan for August to start, to take a fresh look at that and actually rewire what that looks like so that we can support property rights. So thank you for getting that in there. How long of a process do you think that will take to get through and to allow this?
Ultimately, again, that'll be the decision of council, how they choose to proceed with it. My anticipation is that should you uphold the determination this evening and essentially require that we go to that discussion at that time, we would have the conversation over what it may look like, what provisions would be necessary, what accommodations council was seeking to make to allow these family subdivisions to take place. We would then draft language for consideration. It would go through committee. Where this is situated within the subdivision ordinance, that then requires public hearings before the Planning Commission and Town Council. Depending on the desired expediency of it, we could do it independently, or it could be incorporated into the overall update of the zoning and subdivision ordinance and come through along with that process as well.
Billy?
So if we go ahead and grant the appeal tonight, then that actually kind of lights a fire under you to be able to get this knocked out and changed, right? Because I don't want this to fall in the same pattern as the rezoning stuff that we've been working on for the overhaul. Like that's taking painfully forever, which should have been done a long time ago. So hopefully this would light a fire if we were to grant the appeal, that you would take this quickly.
My concern, if you were to grant the appeal, is that I don't have any standards then outlined within town code to hold that subdivision to. So they could submit, again, presuming there would be accordance with state code, but there would be no guidance as it relates to town code as to what requirements we would need to establish as far as lot width, lot size, all of those considerations.
All right. Billy?
So the only thing that's not in compliance is the road frontage.
The lot width, essentially, your lot width is determined by the frontage that you have on a road to access it. So right now,
Simply have a variance to that and proceed. It's been done before, I mean. Sorry, Johnny, that we proceeded with a variance and give them a variance so they can go ahead and do what they want to do to the property?
a variance would be the determination of the Board of Zoning Appeals if they were to choose to grant it. I don't see how this would qualify for a variance, to be quite honest. And if the Board of Zoning Appeals were to grant it, again, it could set a dangerous precedent without clear guidance within the town's ordinance to govern these.
Well, I don't know, family property division, yeah, I don't.
Sorry. Jamie?
Two things. First thing is that what I'm hearing you say is that if we uphold the determination tonight, we could do so with the intent to change our code to be able to be more amenable to this in the near future, correct?
Correct.
Second thing, I just want to say I appreciate the thoughtfulness with which you and town staff has been working towards the zoning overhaul. I understand that there's lots that goes into that, lots of feedback that you want to get from the community, from stakeholders, and that you have been doing so thoughtfully. And I really appreciate the work that you and the planning department have done to make sure that we do this right and right the first time. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. J.D.? All right. Anyone else?
Yes. I might as well get on the bandwagon here. Aren't there two properties adjoining it that have this same issue? They're sharing driveways. I mean, separate property owners sharing the same driveway to get out into the street.
The adjoining property that this lot would propose to share an access with, if you look at the configuration of it, actually has, it's a pipe stem lot coming down, but it flares at the road frontage itself to get the 80-foot frontage requirement. So it does meet the code requirements to do it. Looking at the lot that they wish to create the lot at, unfortunately, it only has approximately 130 feet of road frontage, so it could not be split to provide two 80-foot frontages on it in this particular instance.
Okay, well, I just see that it seems like part of this is we're dealing with like legacy property. It used to be county till 68 annexation. And the FSM, or Facility Standards Manual, I mean, that was really designed to be for major subdivisions. Before the rezoning started happening there back in the early 2000s. But, and then it's easy to just throw that in there. It's like, okay, this is going to be the document that we're going to use for all subdivisions. I don't know. There's got to be a quicker fix than,
If I may, really, the question really before council this evening is based on the code as it's written and the way that it's been interpreted and enforced. Again, the desire to accommodate Mr. Beard and to do the family subdivision with special provisions, the way to accomplish that is to amend our code to put those provisions in. The way that it's currently worded, I believe, and again, I'm biased in terms of that it's my interpretation, but that it's fairly clear that it has to abide by the provisions of the zoning ordinance and the facility standards manual.
well, I understand that too. I think your ruling is correct according to the way the rules are written, but.
Right, Mr. Russell?
Yeah, I just don't have faith that this is going to be done quickly. If we just punt it till August and just kind of not do anything until then, to me, I'd rather just let's create that necessary pressure to light a fire.
Travis?
I think that, obviously, not obviously, but I think that, the ruling according to the code is correct, but it's bad code. And I agree with John that, when we see things like this, it's our place to act and to change those things. And I think that, ruling now to approve is not necessarily wrong, and it does set a precedent that this is going to be fixed.
I also want to say it would, sorry. It wouldn't be we doing nothing till August. Staff would be working hard to figure out what that would look like and maybe present it to us in August so that we can maybe do, it wouldn't be like, no one's going to work on this till it comes to us. We are not the end all be all. We're not writing it. Someone else is writing it. Staff is writing it. We have a great staff. And to insinuate that no one's going to do anything until it comes to us again is just BS. Our staff will work on it. And I agree, if there is a quicker way to get to it, then we should figure that out. But what I'm hearing is that right now, our code doesn't, I fully trust our staff to make sure this happens in a thoughtful and correct way so that this can happen for the community, so that someone who wants to divide their land like this can happen. So I appreciate, wanting to move it as quick as we can. I agree with that. I think we should change code. I also don't particularly like the insinuation that our staff isn't doing their job or is moving too slow, because I really appreciate our amazing staff.
I don't think that was my contention at all. I think, within this process, we're going to have public hearings on this. It's going to have a first reading. It's going to have a second reading. It's going to get pushed back. It's just the process of government is slow. And, we have a case before us right now that's very obviously going to fall within those guidelines that we're going to set in the future. So why hold them back?
One question. What would staff need, what would you need to feel comfortable with us overturning the decision of the planning commission so this can move forward? What would you need to feel comfortable to have those guidelines? Okay, we would need this so I could feel comfortable moving forward with this. Is there anything we could do tonight for that, or?
Well, in truth, again, my read is on the code as it stands right now. Should council choose to overturn that, as I stated, I'm not sure what standards could be applied in evaluating the application that comes in. With the concerns related to the timing, I can certainly outline the timing that we could look to apply in this instance in terms of going to council with a draft language at the committee meetings in August. We could pre-advertise for, again, this is going to, because it's in the subdivision ordinance, would be public hearings before the planning commission and town council. We could pre-advertise to take it to the planning commission for public hearing in September. Assuming that they provided a recommendation at that time, it could then be before council for public hearing in October and adoption at that meeting.
Well, looking at the town as a whole, how many other parcels do you think are family owned that there's enough tracts of land to break up to do what these folks want to do?
It's fairly limited, but there certainly are some where you could see some applications of this. The concern might be that essentially those are then speculatively purchased to do divisions in a family manner.
Anybody else? Well, Andrew, I'd like to say, let's try to work together on this thing and try to get it done as quickly as possible.
Well, Mr. Mayor, beforehand, I do believe it's appropriate to hear from the applicant in the appeal.
All right, yes,
Before
sure.
council chooses to act.
Sounds good. Name, address.
Name and address? All right, Carson Beard, 640 Yowell Drive. And the property I want to build is off of Yowell Drive as well. It's family-owned property. It's actually between my uncle and my parents' house. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at what I wrote up in my appeal, but I think it speaks for itself. I do agree that the code is bad, and I don't think necessarily, I disagree with Mr. Hopewell on that, you know, if you go ahead and improve this tonight, then it's going to open the floodgates for, well, he'd have to, again, by each decision, make a determination, and it would go through the same process. So I don't think, I disagree with that, like, you're going to overrule this and then all of a sudden everything has to be granted. It would still have to go through him. So he would make that determination again. So I think in aspects, you know, I'm in government myself, and I do see that it can move very, very slow. And it's the fault of no one but the inner workings of the government. So I agree with Mr. Russell that it may be kicked to the back burner. I want to establish my home here. I want this to be my permanent residence forever. I want to retire here. I want to be here. That's why I serve the community, because I want to be here. And I want to get on with my life and establish my family. So that is the purpose of this. I don't think it's, I think Mr. Hopewell kind of alluded to it, that there are not many properties that would fit this, that could be done like this. So I just humbly ask that you all overturn that determination and approve this, and then hopefully work on that ordinance to serve more local citizens who may be able to do the same thing, because I think that is the purpose of government, to serve the citizens. And I think this would really serve the citizens. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a
Motion to overturn the ruling of the planning commission.
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Aye.
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 9.04C, ratification of mayor's committee appointments. Madam Clerk?
Yes, item before you, council is being asked to ratify the following changes to Mayor Reeves' standing committee assignments effective immediately. Personnel and Ordinance Committee would be removing Megan Taylor and adding Michael T. Ollinger. Public Safety, Public Works, Planning, and Community Development Committee would be removing Megan Taylor and adding Michael T. Ollinger.
So moved.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Clancy. Councilmember Ollinger.
Aye.
Mayor Reeves.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramikis.
Aye.
Councilmember Russell.
Aye.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Aye.
Councilmember Short.
Aye.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Yao.
Aye.
Councilmember Brown.
Aye.
Motion carries.
9.04D, mayor's assignment of a council representative. Clerk, Madam Clerk?
Council is being asked to ratify the following change to Mayor Reeves' assignment of a council representative to serve on the following committee effective immediately. The Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance Advisory Committee. John Russell will remain while removing Megan Taylor and adding Michael T. Ollinger.
Question, Mr. Mayor. Question. Is the Subdivision Ordinance Advisory Committee even active anymore? I mean, do they still have a role? I haven't met in maybe 2 years.
They have not met in some time. There is the anticipation that once public comment is completed on the draft ordinance, that they will be reconvening to discuss the portions to incorporate prior to a joint work session with the Planning Commission and Town Council. So there is the anticipation of further meetings.
All right. All right, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Ramikis?
Aye.
Councilmember Russell?
Aye.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Aye.
Councilmember Short?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Yao?
Aye.
Councilmember Brown?
Aye.
Councilmember Clancy? Aye. Councilmember Ollinger?
Aye.
Mayor Reeves?
Aye.
Motion carries.
10.01, the mayor, monthly mayor report. Any questions or comments? Do anyone have anything else to bring up this time?
I do.
All right, Ms. Clancy?
I would like to read a letter to Mrs. Berry. I believe you're here. What's your name? Sorry.
Alex Laura, I'm her niece.
Okay, thank you for joining tonight. So we have a letter to acknowledge Mrs. Berry's birthday. On behalf of the town of Culpeper and its citizens, I wish you a very happy 110th birthday that occurred actually on March 7th, 2024. So happy belated birthday to her. May this celebration be an especially joyful reminder of more than a century of living life right, and a happy addition to fond memories of birthdays past. I wish you a wonderful day as you celebrate this very special occasion with family and friends on July 13th, 2024. With best wishes, Mayor Reeves. I'm Jamie, but it's signed Mayor Reeves. I really appreciate you coming and
Yes,
staying. I know it was a
thank you.
long meeting tonight,
All right.
but here's the letter.
It's almost time for another birthday for her.
Anyone has anything else to bring up at this time? If not,
Certainly on behalf
have a good
of
night
Mrs. Lack,
and be safe.
Mr.
I'd
Mayor.
like to thank you all.
We are adjourned.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Sally.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.